Hi, I'm BC DeGraff, author of the book Bernie Won, How the DNC Cheated Bernie Sanders. This is Progressive and Proud. I'm going to be interviewing Gregory Charles Litzenberg. First of all, this is Gregory Charles Litzenberg, great activist, great progressive. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself?
Hey, thanks for having me on. So, let's see, long story short. I moved to DC 4 years ago after working to fight against voter suppression and union busting bills that went through in Ohio. We successfully fought against those, I should say, after the Republican takeover in 2010. And I was still, sort of playing the whole duopoly game and following really the establishment Democrat, which actually was a change in my political views. I had voted for Ron Paul in 2008. So, I've been all over the political spectrum. And what I found out when I moved out on my own and had to pay my own bills was that, things are pretty difficult for working people. And making ends meet can be a challenge. And, people lay awake at night trying to, think about how they're going to pay their rent. So I think that we have an obligation as a community to help each other. And I definitely don't see that on the right side of the spectrum. That's why I'm a leftist. So I've been working in environmental policy for the last 3 years, doing grassroots work out there, getting names and donations to influence politicians to make better choices with our environment. So from there, I got really invested in 2015 in Bernie's campaign, and I worked with Progressive Democrat before Bernie had even announced that he was going to run as a Democrat, and we pushed Bernie to run. A lot of people forget that they collected tens of thousands of petitions to convince Bernie to run as a Democrat. He'd never ran as a Democrat before. So I went back and worked at Clean Water for a little while. I was one of the few there that was willing to speak my mind about Bernie. Soon after that, I got fired. So there were a couple different things that factored into that. I saw it as an attack on my individuality, and my boss couldn't even give me a reason why I was let go. It was sort of symptomatic. The group refused to take a national stance on fracking issues. Refused to take. They've never put out a national press release, and there's so many press environmental issues at the time. So. I could definitely see where they were pulling their punches, so to speak. Wouldn't really endorse a hardball progressive like Bernie.
So tell me about these candidates that you're supporting right now. I see you have a Sanders Hicks little pin right there.
Yeah, I'm really proud to have been out there speaking on Sanders' behalf at Democratic club meetings here in New York City, in Brooklyn, and in Queens, and in the east side of Manhattan. And it's been an amazing experience getting to speak on the same stage as the incumbent who's been in office since Bill Clinton's first election, and real establishment candidate that we're going up against.
Gotta get him out of there.
Yeah, they really like their incumbent here at these Democratic club meetings. I shouldn't be surprised, right?
Tell me on their part. Tell me what your take is on the whole Russian narrative and its construction.
Yeah, I mean, the Russian narrative has really evolved, right? In a very convenient, a very convenient way. I think narrative is the perfect word for it, because it's really been this sort of evolving conversation that's like they stack little Legos here and there, and this piece doesn't fit, we'll stop saying the Russians hacked the election, now there was collusion.
Yep.
It's definitely something that's very convenient to pave over the actual election integrity movement, which desperately wants a special investigation of the events of 2016 and the primary, where real collusion and real corruption happened.
Yep, that's true. And just like today, I've learned that we actually have 145.5 million Americans that have actually lost their privacy and have their social securities out there for everyone to see, have their addresses out there. Yeah, that's right, Equifax. And this corporation has has taken no responsibility for this leak, and now we could potentially see an actual hacking, an actual rigging this time in 2020 with this 145 million Americans. Now their information is out there. Somebody could just assume their ID, go up to a polling station, and if they don't vote and ever vote, they could just simply vote for a neoliberal and just do this many times.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about it earlier today, that this actually reminds me, the Russian narrative actually reminds me a lot of the 9/11 commission, where there was a very real instance of a crime, you know, that was subsequently covered up by this fantastic investigation, that this bipartisan effort, you know, that really just swept the evidence under the rug.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like that's what they're doing right here too. See, this is weird to me, and I know you've seen this too. Anytime it's a terrorist attack, they've called it a terrorist attack. They've been the ones narrating it, that it's a terrorist attack, and they like to sweep things under the rug. Like, they're not talking about these individuals who have their identity stolen or anything like that. Now, you know, they're focusing on blaming Russia and stuff like that, while leaving us vulnerable to things that need election reform and need our actual effort and our focus in addressing these issues. My last question for you, though, is do you see election reform in our near future?
You know, we have to have election reform. It has to be in our near future. We don't have a democracy without it. You know, we've been using the same flawed voting machines since 2000. So it's completely ridiculous to blame you know, the ease of hackability of our elections on foreign officials when our elected officials have done nothing. You know, I want to see you know, people like Dave Strider for U.S. Senate. You know, he's a strong independent. Washington State has a great chance of electing their first independent senator this year. The Bernie-crats have all but taken over the state party, and they're still facing incredible resistance from establishment Dems. So pushing, you know, progressive Democrats out of the party, really, it looks like there's a strong chance they could elect a senator. So go check out www.davestriderforussenate.com. He's an awesome independent candidate, and, you know, obviously with being independent, he doesn't have the party infrastructure to control or support him. So he needs support from, you know, folks like us. And then there's another awesome, really great progressive Democrat running in New York City, Hicks. Obviously, you know, check out hicksforcongress.com. You know, he's working on plans to normalize relations with Iran, and
there you go.
help diffuse this Middle East Cold War between Iran and Saudi Arabia that we see manifesting in you know, conflicts like Syria, Yemen, obviously Palestine.
Oh yeah, Hicks, that's a real great progressive right there. I can absolutely see him running, and he'd actually earn my vote right there with that Iran bit right there. We need to help the Middle East, but we need to leave them alone. That's the whole point. And we have been catering to the Israelis for too long and been just really neglecting the Palestinians. I want to thank you for coming on Progressive and Proud, and this will be on Mikasa Sukasa channel, Nico House's channel. So this will be your debut on this, and you'll continuously be my guest on here. Thank you so much, Chris.
My pleasure.
You have a good day, man.
Thanks so much, Brandon.